You are watching right now at a video produced by IkonoTV, which broadcasts and streams worldwide. Hello, I am Elizabeth Markevitch, an art expert who developed these past years this unique 100% art digital platform online and on air. When I show our videos to people not familiar with art, they all say they are beautiful. But at the same time, they say that art is not for them. Why? Probably because the art world makes us feel that if we don't know about art, we're not even allowed to look at it. And because of this, we feel ashamed. Does this mean we should look at art only with our intellectual brain? IkonoTV, which is the only platform streaming pure art 24/7, focuses only on our emotional brain. We don't tell a story, but as you can see by yourself, we just share its beauty. Thanks to this, we become a door opener and give courage to everybody to just experience in a museum by looking.
All right, this is Phil McNally with ArtSpeak, and welcome everybody. And we're doing another session, as many sessions as I can do at any point in time that I don't get too tired. Today's session is a little bit different from norm. Normally, I will interview artists, and we will talk about the artist and the techniques and their brushworks and how they did this and how they did that. But there are times that I have done these podcasts that are a little bit different, as we talk about business, we talk about marketing, we talk about industry, and we may fall all three of those into this one. I'm today interviewing Elizabeth Markevitch, and she is a very interesting lady to get her on and to talk about. She has some surprises that will spring about art and where that's going. But let's go ahead and get her introduced. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Well, thank you, Phil, for this invitation, and it's very nice to be on your podcast. And thank you, Paul.
Well, thank you for coming. I mean, like I said, this is literally, it has been a while since I've done this, but I'm kind of seeing, coming back into the woods and seeing what we've got going on here. Industries are just changing out the yin and yang as far as America goes, and I think as the world goes too, it is just getting so different. Change, nobody likes it. I mean, I'm getting older and I'm changing. I don't like it, but I've got to do it, and we all have to do it. And I think as artists, I find so many things in some of my talks before that are just hitting just the art industry overall, and other artists, and we'll get into that. But let's go get started on a little bit of your background and where you came from. Were you born in Germany? Did you get, grow up there, and your parents and your,
German.
everything else, and just
no.
You were not.
I'm not German. I was born in France, raised in America as a kid, and then as a teen we moved to Switzerland, and I became also Swiss. I live since over 20 years now in Germany, for funny reasons that we can talk about later, because I live in Berlin, and Berlin is been always a very exciting city in terms of art and fantastic space for artists, because the real estate is not crazy like in other capitals. So it did allow a lot of artists to move here and have huge studios, and then their galleries that they came here also because they could offer huge spaces to their artists and have specific gallery space, and so like that they could show completely different works than they would show in a normal gallery and things like this. And on the same time, about 15 years ago, Berlin became a kind of tech hub also. And you have mainly kind of three tech hubs in Europe. You have some in Sweden, one in Barcelona, and you have Berlin. And so I was, before my whole career, I was selling Impressionist and modern paintings, the top of the top. And I was in this elite, so to say. I worked for auction houses like Sotheby's and was expert in these two domains. And there is a moment in my life when I thought that things were wrong and that I couldn't work only for the top collectors, that I had to find a way to answer to a very simple question, which was really always haunting me in my head, is why is art not as popular than music? And this is how I started to do the comparison between the two and realized that, yes, you have on the music side, you have concerts, and on the museum side, you have museums with their exhibitions and maybe some galleries. But then the music industry took advantage of every tech invented, starting with radio. And when radio started, the music industry did dive completely into it with this aim to distribute a maximum of music to be touching a maximum of people. And it's still the case.
Sorry to interrupt you, but weren't the galleries basically just like the record companies?
Not really, because they're selling one work to one person. A record label, they sell tons of, records at a very low cost. It's the same cost to everybody. And that's the big difference between the art world and the music industry, is that the music industry did find all the different ways to distribute music in different formats. Today we have them digital with Spotify.
Right.
The art world, you're basically going from the museum world to the gallery, selling one person. There is no radio, the equivalent. There is no record label, the equivalent. And there is certainly not Spotify. And this is what I created. I created IkonoTV, which at the very beginning was a broadcasting TV channel, linear TV channel that we were distributing through satellite, in which you would see only an art experience, meaning I was not doing TV. I was not providing, and I'm still not doing it in terms of production. I never produced, interviews or documentaries about an artist. I do today because we stopped the broadcasting and now we have the equivalent of a kind of Netflix for art, because it really, our streaming platform looks completely like a Netflix. We do work with other producers who we aggregate, different types of content. So the aim of IkonoTV is to become an art space in which you can have different types of experiences. Either you want to look at a specific work of art, whether it's contemporary or old master, or you want to dive into, a documentary or an interview or a feature film.
But okay, all right. I kind of see where you're going as far as the comparison between record industry and art industry. I mean, I think the record industry it had its followings. Oh my gosh, so long ago. The art industry did, but it didn't have any, to me, any kind of stabilization, centralization from the point of distribution, because usually it was a one shot deal. You have an artist who comes in and does a painting, and that painting goes into a gallery, or that painting goes into a museum.
Yeah.
But a record, a song, a music, though that is also individually one, that can be distributed to disc jockeys, to radio stations all over the place, and actually in stores and things like that, where an art piece is always a single piece. Never multiple, never many. Unless unless, which you did say something about the technical side, you could get it into, well, prints, digital files, things like that, which could be then distributed, which was not the way it was back in when I grew up in the 50s and 60s and stuff. I mean, they were just, Capitol Recordings and Sunrise Records and the label industries, and they took one song and just distributed it crazy. But museums, they take their art, which is single placed from an artist, and they move it. That artist will move it from one museum to another museum to another museum.
Mm-hmm.
So how can these two actually ever be the same?
Well, of course, you can't compare both exactly, but what I'm trying to tell you is that it's like if the music industry would have been stocked only in the concert hall,
Mm.
or
Mm.
in the music industry, you have different experiences that, I live in Berlin, and you have this famous conductor who is also a pianist who's called Daniel Barenboim, for example. And if I was very rich, I could just invite Daniel Barenboim for dinner. I happen to have a grand piano at home, and I could just have him make us a small private concert. That would cost me probably $1 million for the evening, okay? To have such a star at my private place. I would gather some friends, and we would have a wonderful evening all together, and having a private dinner afterwards with a maestro, so to say.
Right.
And we would have this amazing experience by just being with him in the same room. This is one thing, and this is for the moment what the art world is offering you, so to say.
Mm.
Now, you could tell me you're stupid, you live in Berlin, why don't you go to the concert hall and listen to him at the concert hall and buy a ticket, for $100, or whatever, which of course I could, or I could buy a CD. All these experiences are different, completely different.
Right.
They're nevertheless priced differently, so they're different experience, of course, priced with, different values. One doesn't kill the other.
No.
Okay? And this is what the art world still thinks, that if you get out of the museum world, you're killing the experience of art, which I'm saying it's not true. Because you can listen to, as many music you want, it's not killing the music. You still go to the concert. And we even know now that statistically, people who go to a concert, they go only to listen to music they know almost by heart.
Right.
We
Oh,
rarely
those are basically called fans. I'm there and I want to see
but it's the
this.
same with art. It's the same with art.
Yeah, like I want to see Da Vinci, and I'll go to any kind of art exhibition that in any museum that has Da Vinci in it, but only Da Vinci. Yeah, that's interesting. But it's you're saying that museums, they don't want to expand outside of the box that they're in.
The box wants to remain the box and wants you to have only the experience of the box, which of course is the best experience. So don't get me wrong. I'm not
Right.
saying it's not the best. It is the best. Like you go and listen to a concert in a concert hall, it is the best experience. You can't have better. I'm just saying that there are ways to democratize the accessibility and the experience with different experiences, which are not going to kill the real experience, but they can encourage you to then go to the real experience.
Educate
But the
too.
problem with museums, for most of them, is they're very intimidating. And that there is a lot of people who do not go to museums because of the thick walls, and that we've been telling them over and over again that if you don't know anything about art, you better remain at home.
Well, you got to. It's funny that you say that, because the way I grew up in America, and you've probably been experienced some when you were in America too. I mean, to me, I would categorize a museum like a church. You go in there and you got to be quiet.
Yeah.
And you got to be respectful, and you got to, you can't have your kids running up and down the aisles and stuff like that. And then you go and say, well, who did that, and who is this guy, and who is this lady who did this artist, and say, I don't know enough anything.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, of course, having knowledge is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying for me, it's the second step. For me, the first step is first to look at the work of art. And I'm sure that anyone who is listening to your podcast, who are, as you told me, mainly artists, they want all of us to just look at their work. They rarely would come up with an instruction guide, so to say, telling us how we should look at it and why they've done it. That's the job afterwards of an art historian, who will come with some sort of explanation, whether it's the right one or not, that's another point, but that's the job of an art historian. The artist himself or herself, they want us to enjoy the work. And what I've been trying to do is to respect that. So I did that with video. So I happen to have a streaming platform. Streaming platform means video, filming, all this. So I'm not showing stills. I'm not a platform where you can, look at images. I am really showing the works through a film way. So either it is the art itself, because you have what we call video artists, who are in fact people using a camera like people would use a paintbrush, but they're just using that, and they come up with a wonderful visual story, which is really interesting, and they can look at things differently. I happen to create also, since the beginning, I wanted people to have an experience with all masters. And as I couldn't just show stills, and as I wanted also people to get used to look at art, because there is also a kind of training. If I show you tons of paintings you've never seen in your life, you're not even going to remember them. So
you got on that note right there, you got a good point. I've got my art behind me, and it's like, this is an area that I'm starting to find out with artists too, and artists from the point of what they do. And I've had a situation just recently come up that I wanted to push my art into the community. I wanted to show art, and I wanted to do art, but I just didn't want to show it. I wanted to express it. There's a point of an artist who goes out there and does the art, but then wants to also tell about the art and say, this is where it's coming from. This is what mode I was in. This is the story it tells. And this is where, the important pieces. I see that absolutely off the table. I don't see hardly anything on the table. There was a community event around where I was at, and they're actually having an artist, not meeting, but an exposition where they bring the artist in and they let the artist talk about what they did. And I said, hey, that's a great idea. That's
what you can do with a film. You could do a short film.
You do the same thing with the film. And in fact, I was going to go down the road with the film. And I talked to them a little bit about it. I said, look, because there was a problem here. And the problem is that they're having this exposition, but the problem with it is they're allowing each artist to speak only a few minutes, meaning 2 minutes. And I kind of retorted back on that and said, there is no artist that I've ever come across that will talk about their piece for only 2 minutes and say that's everything. I mean, it just doesn't exist. So I said, I could come in, or my service, I do have a little bit of video. I could come in and say, look, I could sit down with artists and I'll talk to them for, half an hour. I'll talk to about one piece of art, and they have so much to talk about. How did they do that?
You're absolutely right, and it's missing.
It's missing.
And I would love to see more of these. And I think artists who even don't have a gallery, they should be doing, you know, things like this.
Right.
In this case, they might more do the 2 minute in order to put it, for example, on social media or whatever. It would bring them much more traffic than just
Right.
showing an image of the work.
Well, it's like you said, it's like the museum scenario. The museum isn't run by the artist. The museum is run by the museum organizations. So they're going to say, hey, we're not going to go outside of this box that we're talking about. But here's an artist that if you said, okay, I don't know, let me ask you this. Are they afraid that if they go outside and do things differently, such as IkonoTV or anything else that's, you know, technical AI or whatever, do they feel like they're going out of business or something?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. There was one moment of peace, so to say, that I thought it would work out, which was during the pandemic, where suddenly their doors were closed, but mine not. And we were having a lot of, you know, of course, viewers. Funny enough, most of the people who downloaded our app on their smart TV were in America. And so we have half of the downloads there, in, you know, from America. And at that moment they said, "Oh, now we understand what you do," which was completely, you know, ridiculous. But as soon the pandemic stopped, they stopped. And during the pandemic, you know, we were all on these Zoom calls.
Right. Yeah, everything was from home. Yeah.
And I was invited in many of these. And at each Zoom, when there was a museum in the room, so to say, I was telling them, you're completely stuck. Why don't you create a media department and start doing, you know, in-house production? And they all said, "Oh, I don't know if we will get the budget." And I said, "Listen, you're not spending anything right now, and it's not going to cost you a fortune. You should really do it and start being hybrid, you know,
Mm.
but you look at both ways."
Mm-hmm.
Because between you and me, we will have other pandemic because we're not doing anything and we didn't take any lessons about the pandemic. So we will have more, or we will have more, you know, issues where we would be stuck, unfortunately, because we're not reacting on all the other topics. So the fact that the museums, when in the next pandemic, they will get back to the same situation without having a window.
The museum piece is to me people who are stuck in mud, can't get out, and they don't want to get out because it's all working for them, and that's fine. But here's the caveat to that. Okay, so now we've come outside of the bun to the internet. The internet got invented, web got invented, art started coming out, whether museums liked it or not, of really good artists. And now AI is coming up. And I think there's going to be enough inspiration and enough expertise that will draw people away from museums. And what's going to happen is I think you're going to have what we call here in America mom and pop shops. And I think what's going to happen is that this is like the IkonoTV, and that's one way of doing it. But there may be other new ways that we haven't found yet that'll come up. And then from there, all these things will pop up all over the place, and people say, okay, here's a way. I don't have to go to a museum, or I want to go to a museum. But what's going to probably happen there is when we get enough mom and pop shops to show art and all this other stuff, museums will probably get smart enough to say, hey, this stuff is really taking off and it's really doing something. We're going to buy them out. And they're going to go off and then buy these mom and pop places that have art and all this other stuff and say, okay, we'll bring it into ours and put it under our brand. And that'll be our way of doing it. So maybe they can be stuck in the mud and not go anywhere right now. And maybe they'll stay right there while other things actually develop. But that's not going to push them necessarily off the face of the earth. They just won't make as much money until they realize that that was the move. So record industry was smart for what they did. They went from, oh, I'm only going to do what the artist, the musician wants and say that's all that I'm going to do, to say, no, we're going to go take it another way. And then somebody else comes up with another different idea. Well, I can go down this road, and then they buy them out, and then it becomes one brand, and it goes forward, and it works. But I get what you're saying. I think the art industry to me is just so past. It's so old. And like I said, it's like a church. You
But it
go in,
will always exist, and
it will.
everything else is complementary. I think we can all live together. It's not either or.
Yes. Yeah. Oh no, and I agree with that. I don't think it is either
Oh.
or. And you
And
there's
the only thing I can regret from some museums is to say no, it's only us and nothing else.
well, I think they go back to what you talked about earlier. They go back to this thing that it's all kind of uppity. You know, it's so up there with millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires, and
Yeah, but
that's
it's like in the music industry. When you go to the premiere of a opera or whatsoever, it's all the millionaires and the billionaires also going there. You know, it's not either or. It's really all together. It's all different experiences.
but
And I
what I'm saying is that's what I think is running it. The museums are being run by what these people's interests are, and they listen to these people who are the billionaires, millionaires, dream. So they bring them in as the party at hand. It's no different than America right now. I mean, it's the billionaires that are really basically running the show. The poor people, they're just kind of just going along with it because they don't know any better. But they should be kind of running the show as well. They're just not.
Yeah, but this is why I'm saying that there are tools what they could use. You know,
Exactly.
when you were talking about, you know, the artist who is basically in his corner, so to say,
Mm-hmm.
there are wonderful ways today with all this technology that we have and all these platforms where they can get out of their anonymous situation, so to say. And
Right.
and
And
if they do it well, they, you know, it's possible. And during the pandemic, for example, you had a lot of artists who became famous during the pandemic because they managed their Instagram in a fantastic way.
there's another piece of what you're saying, and that's the marketing piece. As far as that artist who can get into this new stuff and get their
Mhm.
stuff out, it's not. I was one of them for about 3 years, and I stopped. It's too difficult. And what on top of being difficult for the artist, it takes so much away from the artist, took so much away from my time in order to market that art, in order just to show it to other people and not even sell, just show it. I mean,
Yeah.
there was so much involved in it. But what I believe would suffice for a lot of artists, I mean, there are some good artists out there who are just in their homes doing some fantastic art that people probably in the masses would never see. I believe we need another piece in the middle to conduit it together with the majority in the world who are art lovers see these artists, but the artists themselves don't want to put the time in because it's just
Yeah, but this
so
is a
much.
bit what we're doing with IKONO, because I can tell you that 99% of the contemporary video artists that we're showing are totally unknown. They don't have a gallery,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. But
Mm-hmm.
we decided that they were worth being shown because we looked at their the quality. Because
And that's what I think you are. I think you're kind of that middle piece that comes
and
in,
we
and we
one of
can.
the middle piece, absolutely. And this is what we're doing. And it's the same, you know, for example, with all masters. I was starting to tell you that the only in-house production we've been doing and we still do is to produce what we call a slow art video.
Mhm.
And the slow art video is something really particular because we look at an old master and we read the work, so to say, visually, and look at it. And the camera is going to go into the details to show you and give you a visual reading of the painting. And because we're not adding any comments and not adding any music, it's not about entertaining, it's about you having an art experience. And this has been very, very successful because we have people who've never been in a museum suddenly looking at these films and saying, wow, I like that, you know? And then they look at it over and over again. They get used to look at it. And then most of them, they want to go and see it afterwards in the museum in real and face the work. Exactly like you know by heart, you know, a rock band or Mozart, and afterwards you want to listen to the concert.
Well, you know, that is interesting that you should say that, because that there's the art that's behind me looks so much different than what I would put on Instagram. Because when you take a camera and just take a shot of your art and throw it on Instagram, I mean, the pixelation and everything else with it, it just does not show it well. I think the same thing with a museum. You go and see a piece of work that's right in front versus something on your phone, the same work on your phone or the same work on that. There is a big difference. The slowness that you're talking about, the slow art, I really like, because if you go in and get just completely astounded by one piece of work in a gallery or museum, you could just sit there or stand there for such a long time looking at the whole thing. What's drawing you in? How did the paint come together? Or how did this come together? How did the sculpture come together? Any kind of piece of art.
Well, don't forget something, Phil.
Mhm.
You're an artist yourself.
Yeah,
You know how to look at a work of art.
right.
You have this instinct which attracts you to a specific work or not. Most people don't have this experience.
Correct.
And when your eyes are not used to look at something, they just don't see that something.
Mhm.
And this is true.
So what got you? I mean, you said at the beginning kind of what got you interested, but what actually made you go to this leap as far as Icona TV?
I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to give everybody an art experience. And the reason why I want everybody to have an art experience is that I think artists have a power that even politicians didn't really realize that they have, in the sense that they have this power to touch us, to tell us something, to show us life in a different way, from a
Mhm.
different angle, and that we need to support that. And for me, I'm really on this mission to get these things out there.
Elizabeth, that just sums it all up right there. I absolutely enjoyed having you on. This has been a
Oh,
really,
thank you very
really
much.
good
It was very
time. And
interesting.
thanks for coming all your way and being part of this. And I want to tell everybody else, we're going to have this out there momentarily, and you'll be able to see these versions of Elizabeth and where she's at. I'll leave all of her information on YouTube or on my website. So just tune into there. And again, thanks you. And this is Phil McNally with ArtSpeak. And we appreciate you coming on board. Thank you. And we'll be seeing you in the future.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. With pleasure.